Hi, my name is Molly, and I am from Gorham, Maine. I study International and Global Studies with minors in Environmental Studies and South Asian Studies at Brandeis University. I studied abroad in Nepal through SIT, and I was on the SIT Tibetan and Himalayan Studies program. I guess one of the biggest challenges for me to decide on that program or to be able to kind of overcome my fears was that I had so many fears about going abroad and studying in such a place that's very different culturally and also just different from, the typical student who goes abroad who might choose to go to Spain, who goes to, London, places like that. I had a lot of friends who are all studying abroad and predominantly a lot of my friends were studying in different places in Europe that were very developed already, or in, parts of Africa, but maybe like South Africa, which is also kind of similarly developed in ways. And so I guess my preparation was a little bit different than theirs was, just because I really had to prepare myself and try to overcome the fears of going somewhere and knowing that I wasn't going to know the language, that, I wasn't going to have necessarily a ton of access to, electricity and to water and things like that. And although those were all really scary, when I was trying to kind of come to terms with that and make the final decision that I wanted to study abroad in Nepal, now that I'm back and have kind of experienced the whole thing, I can say that it gave me a really unique and interesting perspective, and it gave me kind of like an interesting perspective for me as I continue my studies, that I had this experience that was really different and really unique. And in a way, I think it kind of sets me apart from other students who have studied abroad, and especially students who didn't study abroad, that extra perspective that I have kind of globally. While I was abroad, I did a lot of really strange things that could be considered very odd in the United States. My program, I went on SIT, which is predominantly an experiential learning program. And so I lived with a host family. I lived with a Tibetan family in Kathmandu for about 3 months. I did a lot of very non-traditional academic programs. I, received regular class credit, but the classes that I took were nowhere near regular. So my homestay family was probably the most positive aspect of my study abroad time in general. I not only got to practice, the language study that I was doing in class, but I also got to kind of experience the culture and the customs firsthand by living with this family. I was fed really strange things. I was there during the Tibetan New Year's, which is the Losar holiday, which comes in February. It's off of a lunar calendar, so it kind of varies. But and I woke up one morning at about 7 o'clock, and my father, who spoke no English, served me this bowl of like steaming liquid with like chunks of egg in it, and I was like, I don't really know what this is. And so, but I tasted it because, he served it to me and he was very excited, and it was New Year's, so I had to eat it. And it turns out it was alcohol. It was about 7:30 in the morning, but it was a steaming bowl of heated up, I think rice wine, with like chunks of like fried egg in it, which was really bizarre. And then by about 10 o'clock in the morning, most of the family had come over, and they were serving goat heads. So it was really just like head of goat that they had taken off the body, and the process was described to me in great detail of the skinning of the goat head, and then the boiling of it, and then basically they were just sitting around and like snacking on it. So you just kind of cut pieces of flesh off the bone. Might not be encouraging you all to do this program, but no, it was a really interesting. I have to say, only took one bite of the goat head. I couldn't really stomach more than that, but it was as strange and like a little bit gross and horrifying as it was. It was like this was their traditional celebration. This is how they celebrated the New Year. It was tradition. They did this every year. It was like a family gathering point, and it was a really interesting cultural experience to have, despite the fact that it gave me severe culture shock. Some other interesting things that I got to do, I was able to do some research in Nepal. And so SIT is a really cool program that at the end of their program, they do the last month is dedicated to a 1 month like independent study period. And so you get to study something along the lines of the program that interests you in a location that interests you. And it's really kind of one of the few avenues for really legitimate research for undergraduates. We were given funding, we were given, the tools, we were given, classes working up to that, guiding us in field methods and ethics and things like that. And then they kind of just like let us go. And although that was scary when I was, at home 3 months before I left, sitting around thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do this research in a country that I don't know anything about, where I don't speak the language, where I don't even know what I want to study? By the time we got to that point in the program, I felt prepared. The program did a good job of preparing me. And then after, I started and got involved, it was really a really positive, fulfilling experience, and definitely gave me a really unique opportunity to practice like fieldwork. And putting together, a fairly anthropological paper, which was pretty cool. My advice to other students who are maybe thinking about studying abroad, or you've decided you want to study abroad but maybe aren't sure about the program that you want to go or the place you want to go, is to really like push boundaries. I think it's very easy to study abroad in a place like London, where, culturally it's not a huge difference from the United States, where they don't speak a different language, where, maybe it's a little bit different, but it's kind of a lot of the same. There's a lot of world out there, and the way that I kind of finally made my decision of, okay, yeah, this is where I want to go, I know it's going to be hard and I know it's going to be challenging, is basically like, I can go to Europe, I can go to Italy, I can go to London, I can go to Spain when I'm 70 years old and, walk around and take pictures of the Eiffel Tower and things like that, and eat cheese and baguettes. However, how much longer in my life am I going to be able to go to Nepal and trek through the Himalayas and, hang out with Sherpas and eat goat head with the Tibetan family? And it's really scary, but it's also a really, really unique an interesting experience that really sets you apart from other students in general. So that's really my advice, to kind of break some boundaries and not be afraid to go somewhere that's a little bit out of your comfort zone, because it really kind of widens your scope of understanding and puts you in a really interesting place, gives you an interesting perspective globally.